This is a Guide Your Light network production, creating podcasts with purpose.
My name is kianimills, and this podcast is created to help you see, feel, and experience the human side of business. I'm a business owner, an entrepreneur, and a parent. And like many who have travelled this path before me, I've been through the lows of the lows and the gut-wrenching pain. But I've been through the triumphs and the wins and the indescribable highs, all of which I consider to be my lessons in the school of life. On this show, we are going to start some conversations to ignite new world ideas into some very old age businesses. So if you're a leader, a business mind, or an entrepreneur, get ready to think, act, and feel differently so that we can all reach a new level of business success together. So, what are you waiting for? Welcome back to all of my incredible listeners to another episode of She Can Humanise Business. It's been a busy couple of weeks with some incredible guests on the show, and this episode is magnificent. So I have joined with me all the way from the other side of the world, Mr. Kute Blackson. So thank you so much for joining me today.
Thanks for having me.
Wonderful. And when I first learned of your work and who you were, I started to read some of the language and the descriptions and the books that you've written. And I instantly knew that there was going to be a very clear connection between the two of us because the words that you speak in your book, The Magic of Surrender, landed really deeply for me. So if it's okay with you, full-blown permission, I'm going to start with one of my selfish questions. And then I'd love to dive into a bit about the book, but a little bit more about before the book and where your life really came from. So as I do with all of my guests that come on, can you please share with us, what does humanizing business mean to you?
I think it's really what the question is. It's really in the statement. It's really in that topic, that title, acknowledging the human, acknowledging, dare I say, the soul in the human, in business, because, business is made up of a collection of human beings. And without humans, there is no business. And there's no business if humans aren't connected to themselves, if humans are not happy. And the happier humans are, the more honored humans are, the more business will thrive. And so I think it's really seeing the essence, seeing the heart, bringing more compassion, more loving, more kindness, more humanity, more realness, more authenticity into the business environment, that we're not just robots and machines, and business is not just, even a business itself isn't just this entity that is a shell corporation. Even a business structure itself is an energy, is a pattern of energy. And that pattern of energy is made up by the energy of the people. And so I think to acknowledge the people and acknowledge heart, love, compassion is what humanizing business is about.
I love that so much. And it is true, isn't it? If we can remove ourselves from seeing the corporation as a robot, or, when you go to a city, like a big CBD, city central, I often refer to it as a concrete jungle, because in these concrete jungles, there are buildings, and within those buildings, there are corporations, and they're somewhat these square boxes or these square cut companies that have to do a service. And yes, they are there to do a service, but that service doesn't exist without the humans that from the day to day decided to incorporate that company to start with, and then run that company and then employ people. And, I feel the beauty of business and why I love it so much is because it actually all starts with the core of contribution. And then perhaps along the way, people tend to lose track of why they started initially, or egos maybe come in to take over dollars, power, success, things like that. But the core foundation, as you said, is that love and compassion, and ultimately to give back to humanity.
And I think it's the individuals, the humans, that make up the corporation. The corporation is its own, I don't say human, but it's its own being. It's its own entity. We say business entity, in that it's a living, breathing organism that is a company that is its own person, its own persona, but the entity is made up by the different cells that are the people, and the people are the cells that make up the body and the being of this living, breathing entity. And so, to humanize business is also, you start seeing the company as alive and its own entity that's made up by like we have a body, and this body is made up by the health of the cells. And without the cells, we wouldn't have this body. And so the body of a business made up by the cells of the individuals, and the health of those individuals make up the persona and the beingness that is the entity of the business. And so everything is connected. Yeah.
Yes. And that's a beautiful point. I've been studying and doing some work with etymology at the moment. And as soon as you said it, I went organism, organization.
Yep.
They are the same. That's incredible. Oh, beautiful. Thank you so much. What an incredible way to kick us off. Wow. All right. So again, diving in, surrender. I am such a big advocate of surrendering, and it was a really, really hard thing for me to do for a very long time. The thought of surrendering was almost like the thought of dying.
Yes.
Letting go, just take me. That kind of like, it wasn't an empowering thought. It was a giving up thought.
Yeah.
Talk to me and explain to the listeners a little bit about your journey to finding surrender. How did it all begin for you?
The beginning, or the journey of the surrender book beginning?
No, the beginning.
The beginning. So look, I was born in Ghana, West Africa. My father's from Ghana. My mother's Japanese. I grew up in London. I live in the US now. So from everywhere and nowhere, all at the same time, which is a huge blessing. I didn't see it that way as a kid because I felt like I didn't fit in anywhere, but I see the blessing now. My childhood was a bit unusual, although I thought it was very normal. And I think the blessing was, I thought everyone had my childhood, and I didn't think anything that unique about it. As a young boy, I was a very empathetic kid. And so I would feel people. I felt people very deeply, and there was a part of me that always wanted to like alleviate suffering in some way. I just didn't know what that would look like. And so as a boy, like my first memories as a kid, I remember being lost in the crowd in Ghana, West Africa, and seeing a crippled woman crawling on the floor. She picks up the sand, the gravel that this man walks on, wipes it on her face and stands up, and he had no idea. And so week after week, I grew up seeing blind people see and deaf people hear, and people stand up out of wheelchairs. The same man whose sand she picked up will look at a woman in a wheelchair and say, "Why are you in this wheelchair? Stand up." And she would say, "But I haven't walked in 10 years. Stand up." Boom, she would stand up. Person would come over with crutches. He would say, "Throw your crutches away." And she would be walking. He would be walking. And so this man was my father. And so he built 300 churches in Ghana, West Africa, hundreds of thousands of followers, had a huge church in London, about 4,000 to 5,000 people every Sunday. And he was a miracle man, basically. People say, "Well, did it really happen?" These are things I saw day in, day out, as near as in my room, behind the scenes, no fakery, no YouTube, just me, him, people, live. And I didn't think anything of it because it was just normal to me, And my father was a very spiritual man, in that he went to India in the 60s and had a kind of enlightenment experience. So he was very mystical by the time I was born. And so around age 8, I began speaking in my father's churches, and that began my speaking career. And age 14, I was ordained as a minister, and I was basically given a mandate to take over my father's spiritual organization. And I was his successor, basically. And everybody was excited but me. And partly because when it was announced, I knew deep down that this wasn't my path, but I was too afraid to say anything. Like many of us, I allowed fear to hijack my voice. The fear of, if I really speak my truth, if I really tell my father how I feel, if I really be myself, then I'm going to lose him. I'm going to lose the relationship. I'm going to be alone. I'm going to be outcast. I'll be abandoned. And so for 4 years, I said nothing, and went through a deep internal questioning and conflict and turmoil, and tried to fit myself into a box of what I thought I needed to be in order to be loved and validated and valued. And it was really when I turned 17, 18, right in that point, where I felt an undeniable calling. I felt like my soul was calling me to America. Sometimes what your soul guides you to do doesn't make sense to your mind, doesn't make sense to your logic, isn't convenient, right? But I think when you follow your soul, you will always end up in the right place. And so I felt this calling, specifically come to America, go to Los Angeles, because as a young boy, I would sneak into my father's office. We had thousands of books, spiritual books, and I would read the Eastern mystics of Osho and Krishnamurti. And as a 10-year-old, 11-year-old, began reading like Deepak Chopra, Marianne Williamson, Louise Hay, Wayne Dyer. I mean, these were my heroes as a kid. And so I started devouring these books, and I saw, wow, there's a whole nother way to make a difference in people's lives. It doesn't have to be through this church thing. And I just felt inspired to go find these people. And so as I looked into my future, I saw that I could take the expected path. My life was scripted for me, and I could follow my father's footsteps and be successful. But I saw that if I didn't have myself, if I didn't have my soul, if I didn't have my truth, if I didn't have my integrity, then what kind of success is that, you know? And if I lied to myself now, I would have to lie to myself for the rest of my life. And that was painful. And so I knew what I had to do, which was basically have the conversation with my father. I decided to leave everything behind, renounce everything, much to everyone's dismay. And my father and I, we didn't speak for about 2 years. And that was difficult. But I felt I was on the right path. And long story short, I ended up winning a green card in the green card lottery that enabled me to come to the US. With 18-year-old kid, $800 in my pocket, 2 suitcases, knew no one in the country, landed in LA, and followed my dream. Went and found many of the teachers that we've read about, and studied with some of them, learned from some of them, went to their seminars. And a few years later, I had another, awakening in that I decided to travel. And I wanted to know truth for myself. I was tired of reading the books. I was tired of, getting knowledge through someone's ideology. I wanted to know for myself. And so I decided that I would walk the Camino in northern Spain, 900-kilometer trek in northern Spain on a vortex line. And it took me about a month. And I thought I'm going to ask questions and find myself. And from that, I ended up in India. And it was my time in India that really cracked me open to another level of understanding my purpose and why I'm here. And from there, came back to the US and began as a young kid, 21 years ago, I think, started working with people. I had no idea what I was doing as a coach. This is before coaching was popular, but I began to work with people one-on-one, and slowly one person came and I created my own way of working with people, called it uncoaching. A life changed, and then it evolved, and it kept evolving, and I kept receiving new sort of inspiration for how to work with people, and people's life changed. And it just expanded from there into small groups, large groups, bigger seminars, and 2 books.
Amazing. There's so many things that I want to dive into with all of that. I think the most beautiful thing at the start was in relation to the work that you did do with your father, even though for 4 years it was somewhat not your passion. You obviously had that innate ability, that mystical, magical ability that your father carried as well. So as much as sometimes we do end up following in family's footsteps or leading a life that we maybe didn't choose for ourselves, in those some do come the biggest lessons in our whole entire life. But the beauty in it too is that you were able to explore your abilities and be able to really expand on what you were capable of, because as you said, you were never going to be your father. You were going to be something different, but there is an exchange of energy there in that. So if you could kind of sum it up, what do you believe your father's biggest gift to you was?
It's interesting because when I left for the US and I ended up traveling the world, I met every teacher in the US, you name them, I met them. I went to India, met with hundreds of spiritual enlightened gurus and masters and mystics. And I think, through that process of searching, I began to appreciate my father for the gifts that he had. One thing that he had was a profound, unshakable faith in the divine, in God, in this intelligence, whatever label you want to put. His faith in the divine intelligence was so unshakable that was a huge gift. Because to see someone that was surrendered to that, and so, he was not a perfect human, but his devotion to the divine and trust in that was unwavering, to the
Mm.
point where you look at a person in a wheelchair and you say, stand up, because you believe. You believe in this infinite something inside of each person. And to not waver it's profound. And so the way I saw him live his life with such faith, was a huge gift, And when I look back at his example in those ways, I'm like, wow, that was a gift to see that being demonstrated day in and day out through the miracles, but also through just how he lived his life. That was a huge gift.
And sometimes we do need that hindsight perspective to be able to really pull the gifts out. As you said, it took you to leave and go and experience all these other ways of doing it to really, truly come back to that core of, this is what this man has gifted me in some way, shape or form. That's one of the things that we do speak about a lot on the podcast is allow yourself to go back and find the lessons in what were probably some of the hardest times, especially when you are going against your family and leaving a whole world behind. In there somewhere will be the biggest gifts of a lifetime that sometimes we overlook. Magic, so much magic. And then also to the other part in there that I really loved, and this is something that has become really obvious for me in the last probably 6 or 7 years, around the life that we're born into, which we are innately, we're cared for by parents and community and the people around us. And sometimes we don't have a choice of where that path leads, but we feel as though we're put on a path of fate, and that fate is what is in front of us. It's one foot in front of the other. Just follow the leader, do as you're told, practice the learnings that you've been taught, whether it's through an incredible church leader or through a state school like I did. But you become, somewhat indoctrinated to a way of being that for a lot of us that get to a point in life and go, oof, there's something missing. There's something that's not quite aligned to the life that I've been given. Something's off. There's something in here that's not fulfilled. How do I find that? And in my world, I call that the destined life. That is you choosing and taking a step away from what's comfortable and stepping into that destined life and path. And it can be scary, and it can definitely take you down some wrong paths sometimes, but it's all the learning in it. So from you stepping away from your fated life and stepping into your what you've created to be your destined life, is there something in there that is a really monumental thought or practice that helped you stay on track? Because I'm sure in there somewhere there would have been a moment in time of like, I'll just go home, I'll just go home. But what was it for you that kept you going on your path?
Honestly, it was a knowing more than anything. There was just an undeniable pull in knowing that felt bigger than me. And it felt like, in a strange way, kind of a freeing way, like I didn't have a choice. I have to do this, not in any limitation. It just felt like this was destiny. Like, this is why I was born. I have to do this. And so it was like surrendering to that, trusting that sense, that feeling, that soul, something, and just following that. Like when I won the green card in the lottery, which is not an easy thing, but winning this green card, that was also another moment when a confirmation for me. Like, as an example,
there wasn't, if there wasn't anything bigger, that's a true
so it's moments like that have also kept me going, because I remember, someone hands me a magazine called The Economist. I look in the back, it says American government's giving away 55,000 green cards in the green card lottery. I feel this nudging to enter. I enter it. I was told, unless you hear back by September the 18th, just move on with your life. Every day I'm expecting to get a notification, and every day I get nothing. And so sure enough, September the 18th rolls around, nothing. I'm shocked. I'm mad at the universe. I'm mad at life. And I decided I was going to pack my bags and just go to America, basically, and not come back. I'm not coming back. I'm just going to go. And that night, the phone rang. My mother picks up. She hands me the phone. There's an American voice, a law firm. The law firm we applied through says, is this Mr. Blackson? I said, yes. He said, you have won a green card. We applied for you, and we just got the notice today. And I was jumping around, hugging my mother, full of like, oh my God, I don't believe it. And in the midst of my joy, I'm 17 and a half years old. In the midst of my joy, I heard this voice that said, why do you seem so surprised? You knew you were going to win. Why do you seem so surprised? And that has been a moment that has stuck with me, that throughout any of those challenging times, a feeling that there is a deeper intelligence that is guiding, a deeper intelligence that is functioning, a deeper something that is at work. And many times in the moments when things are falling apart, in the moments when things have not gone according to plan, in the moments when I thought all hell broke loose and I wasn't able to understand, often it's as a bit of time has gone on and I look back, then I understand, oh, in retrospect, not from ego's viewpoint, in retrospect, looking back, why I needed to have that heartbreak, why I needed to go through that difficulty, why I needed to face that darkness, why I needed to go through that desert desolation moment when I felt betrayed. And then it all makes sense. And so every time I've gone through those moments and then stepped back and then come out the other side and it made sense, it also gave me more and more, should we say, faith and trust in life. So I would say if anyone is going through a dark moment in life, if you're listening to this interview, this podcast, this conversation, and you're going through the darkness, because we all have those moments of darkness where you can't see your head from your ass. You can't see the light from, a million miles out. You don't know what the hell is happening in your life. You feel turned upside down. Maybe you feel abandoned by God, the universe, life, and you're wondering, what am I doing? If you're in a moment of darkness and you can't see anything, what I have learned is that is a very pregnant moment. That is a very powerful moment, that the darkness is a gift. Many times we see the darkness as a curse or something negative, but it's a blessing, because when everything is dark in life, maybe you feel like giving up. Everything is dark in life. You can't see anything. The darkness is inviting you to go inside. The darkness is actually forcing you to look inside, because when you look outside, you can't see anything. There's no distractions, there's no light. And so the darkness then, because there's nowhere to look outside, the darkness forces you to go inside to connect with who you really are. The darkness is actually inviting you to your truth, to your essence, to your real self, to connect to the infinite nature of your being that is unbreakable, And so that's, to me, the invitation of those dark moments, that it's in those dark moments that I found myself. Yeah. But sometimes when life is great, everything is great, so many distractions, but it was in those dark moments that I went inside and I connected to who am I and what am I really made of, and what is this in me, and is there something in me that is beyond this experience, is beyond the circumstance. And so, yeah.
I love that so much. It's incredible. And there was something really beautiful that you mentioned earlier when you had that moment and you almost packed your bags, but you weren't packing your bags to give up. You were packing your bags to go to America. You're like,
I was going
anyway.
No, I was going.
So that, in my understanding, that is your commitment. You are so committed to the cause that the green card didn't come. All right, that's a frustrating moment. That's angry. Yes, of course. But so, you know what? I'm not going to stop anyway. So the minute you show that relentless perseverance towards the knowing, surrender to the outcome, miracles happen.
Yeah, there's a few reasons why I have seen, as I've explored my life, my clients' lives, there's a few reasons why things, we say, don't manifest. And in those moments when things don't manifest is when we want to give up. We feel cursed, we contract, we complain, we want to give up. Like, I'm done. And if maybe folks can just see which category, like the first thing I've seen is sometimes things don't manifest because the thing or the goal that you're pursuing is not the goal that is authentically aligned with your soul's integrity. It's not an authentic alignment with your highest truth. It's more coming from conditioning, coming from ego, coming from the mind, what you think you should be doing to please people, what you think you should be doing in order to feel loved and validated and feel worthy and prove yourself that you're enough because you didn't feel enough. And so sometimes things tend not to manifest because you're not truly aligned with your deepest purpose and truth. And so the universe is kind of course correcting you. What we tend to do is we tend to force things in that moment, push harder, but now we go in the wrong direction quicker, rather than saying, okay, I've tried and I've tried and I've tried and I've tried and I've tried, hasn't opened up, it's not working. Let me step back and reevaluate. Let me step back and meditate and deepen the questioning, like what's true, what's authentic. Let me step back and do some soul searching, then connect, then move back. And so that's the first thing. The second thing is sometimes it's just not time yet. It's just not ripe yet. You're not ripe. Life's not ripe. The collective isn't ripe. And so again, what we tend to do is try to force the timing of things. And like a pregnant woman who, let's say, is 2 months pregnant, like, I want to see my baby, but it's 9 months, 40 weeks, everything has a season, and everything has a timing under the sun. And when the mango is ripe, it will fall. When the avocado is ripe and ready, you'll know. And so you can eat unripened avocado, but it's not very pleasant, right? You can, it's not pleasant. And this is what we often do. We're kind of eating unripe avocados in life. And so I think rather than forcing, we step back and just feel the life has this intelligence of life that has been around for billions of years. Life has a rhythm. If you stop forcing, you will feel the natural unfolding and rhythm of, the flow is taking me to Australia. The flow is taking me to Bali. No, the flow is taking me to LA. It's like something is flowing in this rhythm and this timing. And so I think when we stop forcing and we just are available and curious and open, and we feel into the flow, life has a rhythm. And so we have to trust the timing of life, trusting divine timing. The third thing that people often don't realize is you haven't learned the lesson that your soul needs to learn where you are with who you're with. And because you haven't learned the lesson, all lessons are repeated until learned, and we keep recreating the same lessons. And not learning the lesson is what is blocking your blessing, blocking the next level or graduation to the next level of life and experience. And so the way I see, we're souls. We incarnate into this human experience. Life is like a university for our soul's evolution. Every situation, relationship is kind of the teacher or the curriculum for our soul's growth. And the purpose of life is growth and evolution. When things tend to not manifest or break through to that next level, rather than forcing, we have to step back and sometimes ask ourselves, what have I not yet learned here? What is the lesson for why my soul has attracted this person? What is the reason and the lesson that my soul is seeking to understand for why I'm in this situation? Because I think when we can learn the lesson where we are with who we're with, that's the key to unlock the lock to that next level of life, And so those are some things I've learned in moments when I felt like giving up, is to look at, okay, is this because something isn't aligned? Is it because it's not time? Is it because there's a lesson I haven't learned yet, or I haven't become who I've needed to become as a result of learning the lesson yet?
Yeah, wow, they are so insightful and so perfectly aligned with everything that we're speaking about, because I truly believe when we talk about humanizing business, again, it's back to the people, and people come into our lives. Sometimes we have no idea why, but my belief is, part of our soul's plan is that people come into our lives to either teach us a lesson or for us to teach them a lesson. It's all about the learning. And I know that for a lot of us, we get caught up in that, I've met this, I'm a woman, I've met a man, it must be romantic. It's like, well, no. Not always the universe's plan that every single person you meet is a potential mate.
Yes.
Look deeper, look beneath the concept of what our mind is creating, and go deeper and find that. Because for a lot of my experiences, I'm a teacher. I know that I've come through this soul plan, through the astrology charts, and my role is a teacher. So in a lot of those situations, I'm able to teach or learn, I learn in return, but the teaching part is really important for me. So it's going, right, how can I be of service in this relationship and teach that person? Sometimes it's not even anything intentional, but there is a plan. Like the point I'm trying to make, that there is a plan, and people come into our lives for a reason. So by looking at the lessons and looking at the learnings and repeating the same habits, and identifying that maybe this person isn't here for a romantic reason, or isn't here for long term, we are just going against the rhythm of the universe, because the flow really does. And one of my gorgeous friends told me this analogy where it's the feather, the brick, or the bus, and the universe will come to us in ways and use his little feather to guide us back on our path if we're maybe stepping away from what the plan is. And so the feather will come and they might tickle our foot or tickle our arm, or we'll feel the senses. Goosebumps are a beautiful example of that. Truth bumps, as we call them. The feather kind of gets you back on track. And then if you don't listen, the brick will come, and the brick's a little bit stronger. So it's a little bit more like, okay, come on, pay attention now.
Yep.
This is what's happening. You're not on the right path. This is what you've asked for, but this is where we're going. The brick is a little bit stronger. It's a little bit more forceful. And then when we don't listen, which my beautiful universe tends to be the bus a lot, it's those moments of darkness. The bus hits you so hard to jolt you to go, hey, wake up. There is more here. Come back to center, come back to home. And, but again, it's almost removing ourselves from our minds and our egos to be able to hear the lessons or hear the warnings or the synchronicities and the symbols and be awake to those things in the first place, which can be a little tricky sometimes.
Yeah.
So after my babbling, I am really, really excited about this book, and I know that you have some upcoming events. And so maybe let's just start with the book. So Magic of Surrender. Again, a bit like my humanizing business, it kind of says it in the name, which is incredible. And we've spoken a lot about surrender, but what was your intention behind releasing this book? What is your, I guess, the outcome for you as a spiritual leader to share with those reading the book?
Well, what I will say is, this was not the book I wanted to write. This was not the book I planned to write. This was not the book I intended to write. I actually wanted to write a completely different book. And I sat down at the beginning of the process with an entire whiteboard of brilliant ideas. I strategized with my mind's intellect, and I probably had 75 different ideas of books I thought would be a mega New York Times best-selling book, books I thought the publishers would want, books I thought my audience would eat up. Yeah. And they were great ideas, don't get me wrong. But as I sat there and I looked, none of those had a resonance. None of the books, none of these ideas felt aligned. The truth is, the only word when I looked at that whiteboard was surrender. And that's the word that had an energy. It had a vibration. And I thought, oh shit, that's the book. And so I had to surrender to the book about surrender. And when I surrendered to the book about surrender, I realized that this book has a soul, an energy, a destiny of its own. And so my job is not to write the book. My job is to sort of just be a vessel for the book to emerge, for the book to be birthed, a book doula, so to speak, if anything. And everything flowed when I surrendered to, this is the book, and everything about my life, to be honest, certain things I shared and more, everything about my life began to make sense. I felt as though, wow, my life has kind of prepared me to write this book for the new generation, to present surrender in a modern day framework, to re-envision surrender for the new generation and the mainstream. Because in our culture today, we kind of have this idea that surrender is weak, that surrender is passive, that surrender is giving up, that surrender is waving the white flag, that surrender is being a doormat, that surrender is being a victim, that surrender means getting left behind, that surrender means you won't manifest your goals, dreams, and desires, that surrender means you're going to get less in life. And I'm actually saying, no, if you really surrender and understand the real essence of surrender, what if you didn't get less, but you got more? Like more than you could have planned and envisioned with the limitation of your ego mind, more than you could have planned and envisioned, maybe not what you wanted or expected, but better and more. And that's where the magic is. Magic is that which is beyond what your mind's capacity to even imagine is. It's bigger than your mind. It's bigger than what you can sort of conjure up with your intellect. And I think we all want magic. Everybody wants more magic in their life. Everybody says, yeah, I want more magic, but often we're not willing to surrender. And so magic is the formula. Like if you want more magic, you have to surrender. And the degree to which you surrender is the degree to which you experience magic. And so I think, to me, having lived surrender over and over and over and over and over in love, in life, in relationships, in business, in career, and seeing the impact of surrender in my lived life, I feel as though surrender is the most powerful thing that we can do as human beings. I feel as though surrender is the real secret to the next level of manifestation, the next level of life. When you look at the truly great ones, Jesus, Buddha, Gandhi, Mother Teresa, Martin Luther King, Mandela, Bruce Lee, Muhammad Ali, at some point, they all surrendered themselves to life. They all got to the point where they surrendered themselves to their vision, to the divine, to their souls, to that deeper destiny, and they transcended their human limitations. And in that surrender, they tapped into another dimension of life, and the potential of life, and life began to use them. Life began to create and manifest through them. And that's when I think the miracles happened, you know. And so surrender is it's a letting go of control. Surrender is a letting go of the illusion that we are in control. Surrender is when we stop trying to force life to fit our limited idea of how we think it should be. And it's taking the limitations off of life. It's being available. It's being open. It's being receptive. It's allowing life to show you in its intelligence, because life has an intelligence. You know, the old paradigm, and this is also what I want people to get, the old paradigm of how we've been conditioned, and how even in self-help, like, know what you want. You got to know what you want. Nothing wrong with that. Know what you want. But the thing is, at some point, you might get what you thought you wanted, only to realize that what you thought you wanted is not what you really wanted. It was just what you thought you wanted based on the misperception of your, you know, self and ego and identity. And many times our goals can be projections of unmet needs from childhood. And so then we're not truly fulfilled, even though we get what we wanted. And so, yes, you can create from the lens of the ego. You can manifest from the lens of the ego, but it will be limited.
Yeah,
it will be limited.
Really important point you said before as well. You're only creating from a limited
because the ego is limited. The ego, no matter how amazing, is still limited to past experiences, childhood experiences. So it's not able to see the infinite possibilities of life and what is seeking to happen. It sees a very limited perception. So yes, you can create from ego, but it will be limited. So the question I invite people to ask is not simply like, ask what do I want, but don't stop there. The question I invite people to ask is like an infinite question. What is it that life is seeking to express through me? What is it that the universe is seeking to express through me? What is it that God is seeking to express? What is it that the divine, the infinite intelligence, my soul, what is the deepest impulse of what is seeking to express through me? And to attune to that, to feel that, to sense that, to listen to that, because when you can bring your mind, your ego, your personality into alignment with that deep, authentic impulse that, you know, arises from a deeper dimension than your logic and your ego conditioning, that's where the magic happens. And then you can bring your mind and your marketing, your strategy to support that and give 100% without attachment. Now you're in flow. And so that's the question. What is it that life is seeking to manifest through me? Because life is bigger than you and I. And sometimes what we think we want is not what we really want and not what we truly need.
And we're all here for a purpose. And I think the biggest thing that you just said in all of that is through me, through me. We all feel so isolated that we are the only human on this planet going through what we're going through right at this very moment. And it's only happening to me. It's not happening to anyone else. And those kinds of, and it's a normal mindset. That's our ego is there to protect us, but it also lives from a place of fear. But when we can crack through that and realize that we are not alone, and that there is a greater plan, and that perhaps maybe we just haven't really been listening, and as you said, go in and find out what needs to come through me, because then no longer are we working from a I have to, it's an I get to. And the energy exchange is totally different.
Yeah, it shifts for sure.
Yeah, I love that. And that's the beautiful word you said before was curious. I truly believe that if anyone's looking for the first step, it is just be curious. Be curious with the thoughts that pop up in your mind. Be curious with what books you're reading, what news you're watching, where's the information coming from, how does it make you feel? You know, curiosity is a beautiful thing. And the best part about this book that I love so much, and you said it, modern day. Because we're not back in the days of Jesus and Buddha and Gandhi. We're not. We're in 2023. Miracles happen, but they're just not as, you know, back in those days, it was those magical mystics that people would flock to go and visit. And in the world that we live, yes, we are so blessed we still have those people in this very day and age. Absolutely. But with social media and technology and things like that, it is very easy to kind of, you know, dull down some of those messages and some of those bigger realization, those bigger, situations where magic really does happen on a large scale, like your father would have done. So the best thing about this book was that it is written for the modern day person. So even if you go, oh, this is all CODSWALLOP, this is surrender, this is, what kind of a craziness are you people talking? It's like, just read the book. Read the book.
Can I say something to that?
Yeah, go.
Because I like that. People might be wondering, CODSWALLOP, which it sounds like an Australian term, but I'm going to steal that from you. It's CODSWALLOP. So for folks that might be saying, yeah, this is BS. It's CODSWALLOP. Surrender is for the yogis in the Himalayas. I want everyone to consider this. Every one of us is hardwired for surrender. In fact, it's what we're really seeking. If everybody right now, I don't care if you don't give a damn about spirituality. I don't care if you hate yoga, you're not into mindfulness, meditation, none of this stuff makes any sense. You're like, it's rubbish. Okay, no problem. But still, surrender is hardwired and it's what we seek. If every single person listening, if you just imagine your most beautiful sexual encounter. We've all had a moment of bliss, a moment of ecstasy. If you just imagine it for a moment when you were with your lover, interacting, kissing, sharing energies, you were just there together and just in a moment of passion. What made it ecstatic? What made it blissful? And you don't have to be spiritual for this, right? Was it because you came to the sexual exchange, lovemaking with an iPad full of notes and a business plan of, okay, honey, minute 1, okay, you're going to lie on the bed this way. Minute 2, we're going to do this. Minute 3, you're going to kiss me exactly 17 times. Minute 4, what made it blissful was you were not in control. What made it blissful was you let go. You didn't know what was going to happen. You were responding to the moment. If every time we made love, we knew exactly what was going to happen for the next, half an hour, 30 minutes, an hour, it's like, yep, it's going to last exactly 17 minutes. And this is exactly what's going to happen. None of it would be torture. What made it blissful was we surrendered. And so you don't have to be spiritual for that. It's what we're all seeking. And so if that's what makes love making so ecstatic, what if we lived our life that way? When we drink, we go to the pub, we go to the bar, we get drunk, a little tipsy. Why? Because it feels terrible? No, because for a moment, the egoic sense of identification starts to loosen. And so what we're actually seeking is a loosening, a surrender of our own sense of self-identity. And so we're seeking to sort of experience more freedom. This is a surrender. We do drugs. Why? Because we, for a moment, can be free of ourselves, surrendered from ourselves. And so we're seeking this surrender. Often we're just seeking it in limited ways. And so it may not be as CODSWALLOP as we think.
I love that so much. And one of the things that came through then was around the fact that as humans, we really are just trying to, we seek for ease. We try and create ease. But unknowingly to us, our ease comes from where we're comfortable, and our comfortable comes from our patterns and our indoctrinations. And what is actually the easiest thing for us sometimes is to step into the uncomfortable and start thinking or behaving in a different way to allow the ease to flow through surrender. So it's a bit
surrender is natural.
Yeah.
Surrender, look, people say, surrender is hard. Yes, surrender can feel hard to the ego. That sense of self that we believe ourselves to be. And that's why surrender feels like a death, right? It feels like a death. It's not a death because we are not the ego, but we've mistakenly identified ourselves to be the ego. And the degree to which we identify as this mind-body mechanism and belief system and structure, what we've been indoctrinated to believe ourselves to be, then it feels like, oh, surrender, I'm dying. No, I don't want to die. And so the job of the ego is to protect you, to make sure you don't get hurt again. And the job of the ego is to reinforce its existence. But the truth is, okay, I'm going to make a fist. For those listening, I'm making a fist. I have a pen. I'm tightening. I'm holding this pen very tightly. This is kind of how we live life, in a tightened grip that we've learned to just function and survive.
Hold on.
But the truth is, this begins to feel normal after a few years. By the time we're 10 and 15 and 20, this feels normal. But truly, if I said let go, I mean, how effortless is that? How natural is that? How easy is that? But because we become conditioned into a certain identity, surrender just feels hard. But really, it's harder to hold on and resist than just let go. It's just conditioning more than anything, you know.
Absolutely. Oh, I love that so much. A friend reminded me of a really cool little fact the other day. It takes more muscles in your face to frown than it does to smile. And so if we're, as you said, it's harder to hold on. It's harder to, it actually takes more energy to frown than it does to smile. I let go, smile and let go. Maybe we're making it sound a little too simple.
Yeah, it is, and it's not, you know.
Yeah.
It's the ego that resists. And so I think if we understand the nature of the ego, because we've been conditioned to believe that the ego is who we are, but it's not. And I think if we can understand that the ego is just the conditioned reaction and adaptive pattern that we've learned to become to avoid pain and get love and function and survive. And now, because of that, we've learned all sorts of strategies of control, not because we're bad, but just because we think if I can control everything, then I'm not going to get hurt again. And so our resistance is well intended, and our resistance means well. And part of why it feels hard is because our ego is just trying to protect us. So if we can understand that, then rather than forcing ourselves to surrender, to be able to meet our resistance with grace and love and compassion, so that we can see where we're resisting, and rather than saying what's wrong with me and judging ourselves, to just hold the resistance with some tenderness and understand that, yeah, it's natural that we're afraid, it's afraid, these patterns are afraid. And so if we can hold ego with a bit of compassion, without forcing ourselves to let go, and meet ourselves where we're at, which is a level of surrender, then our resistances can also relax and open and surrender, you know, in the space of compassion and love.
And as you were speaking about before, having those moments of retrospect and going back to understanding this is why this happened, or this is, you know, as we spoke about, this is the gift that my father gave me, and seeing those parts of who we have become because of what we have experienced. Our ego is really just trying to protect us so that we don't get hurt again.
Yeah, it means well.
Absolutely, it does. Yeah, we need it. You know, our ego is the one that tells us to look both ways before we cross the street.
Right. Yeah.
But if we can at least start by doing some of that retrospective work and having a look back at some milestone experiences and going, oh, this is why. This is where it's come from. So in that moment of compassion, not only holding it and gently nurturing it, but saying, oh, okay, this has come because when I was, you know, potentially 5, someone said something that hurt my feelings. So I didn't receive the love that I needed back then. So, okay, it's okay. I'm safe now. You know, it's okay. Let the ego, again, it's just wanting compassion and love from you.
Yeah, absolutely. That's the work. That's the surrender, you know. When we do that, then those patterns can kind of unravel. And I think healing happens when we bring loving and compassion to those parts of ourselves that are resisting and hurting. And then we can get into inner cooperation and open a bit more, surrender a bit more. And so sometimes the surrender can happen in phases and stages, little by little.
Amazing. And is this some of the work that you do at your seminars and events? Because you've got one coming up soon.
Yeah. I have one coming up in July the 28th, and August to August the 8th, and December the 5th through the 16th. But essentially, and I can share more about that in a bit, but essentially my work is about helping people become conscious of the patterns of conditioning and programs that we have developed over time that really limit the full expression of our essence and being from manifesting in the world, and helping people become aware and unravel those layers of conditioning so that they can be free and live that freedom in the world. And one of the deepest processes that I created is the journey in Bali. It's called Boundless Bliss, the Bali Breakthrough Experience.
So 9 days in Bali, 10 days?
It's 12 days.
12 days.
It's 12 days. We dive deep for 12 days. The last 10 years, I've done 20 of these events, and they're life-changing. I mean, 20-hour days, but it's really transformative, and life-changing in so many ways. And so if someone listening, you feel you have a sense that you've been put on the planet for a purpose bigger than yourself, and maybe you're in a place where you're ready. You're like, I'm ready for a breakthrough. I'm ready for the next level. I'm ready to heal. I'm ready to transform. I'm ready to connect to my authentic nature and share my gifts with the world. Then I invite you to the event in July. You can go to www.boundlessblissbali.com. It's boundlessblissbali.com, or the one in December, depending on when you're listening to this. And we dive deep, but they're truly life-changing. For me, it's about freedom, right? The degree to which we're conditioned is the degree to which we're not free. And we think we're free, but we're really not. We're often just playing out the conditioning that has been either passed down to us from generations, or we're kind of acting out the conditioning that are based on the wounds of our childhood that we're playing out. And many times we say, no, this is just who I am. I'm just this way. But we don't realize we're just conditioned. We don't realize we're conditioned. We've become conditioned into a set pattern that we call me. And so I think part of freedom is the ability to unravel that conditioning so that you have access to a wider range of viewpoints and perspectives and choice.
I want to come to Bali. I know we have some listeners in Bali too, so I'll be purposefully sending this directly to you guys, because
awesome.
It's such a beautiful thing that you are bringing to the world. And yes, there are practices that do this, but again, it comes back to that modernization of something that has been around for billions of years, because our lives are busy. Life is so different now than it was back in the 1800s. We have so many different challenges in different ways, shapes and forms, which are evolving every single day. So I do truly feel that the work is the work, and that won't change, but there does need to be considerations and alterations. And as we know, as humans, we evolve. The work. So the modernization of the work that you present, I've truly found absolutely groundbreaking, because it gives another viewpoint on a way of words that have been around for a long period in time, but kind of wrapped in this beautiful little bow that for me landed so deeply. So thank you so much for sharing all of that. All of that. No, that was incredible. My throat's even going. No, that's beautiful. Was there anything else that you would like to leave the listeners with? Any future? I know that we've spoken about the events, and we will share information on the event.
If people want to connect, they can get the book, The Magic of Surrender, on Amazon. If people want to connect, Instagram, Kute Blackson, Facebook, Kute Love Now, my podcast, Soul Talk. Say hi. Let me know you heard me on this podcast. It was a beautiful episode, just jamming with you. I learned a new word that I'll use as well, so that's been a blessing.
I've actually decided already I'm using that in the title, just so that you don't forget.
That's awesome.
And I would just remind spirituality.
There we go. And I would just remind people, look, life is precious, life is short. The truth is, you are going to die. And none of us know when that moment will come. And many times we live like we have forever, but we don't. The biggest regret I have in my life is when my mother passed away. And I thought I had time. And I had all of these plans of things I wanted to do with her, but I was too busy. And so if death came right now, would you be ready? And if not, why not? What's ungiven? What's unexpressed? What's unsaid? What's uncommunicated? What's unlived? And how would you need to live? What would you need to shift? Like, if you knew the date and time of your death, would it change how you live your life right now? If God said, you're going to die in 2 weeks, 2 months, 2 years, 20 years, like, would it shift some things? If it would, start exploring and investigating. Okay, what are some of the shifts I would need to make so that if death came now, I would have no regrets? And because when we die and we meet our maker, you can't go to God and say, hey, God, can I get a refund on those 2 years I wasted in that relationship? It's gone. God will say, CODSWALLOP, it's too late. So move on. And so no regrets, folks. This is it. Enjoy the game of life.
I had a very startling experience only like 2 or 3 nights ago. Actually, I had, I know the time, 4:26 a.m. in the morning, I got jolted and woken up with this message that it wasn't a message for me. It was a message that needed to come through me. And the words were, save yourself. And the notion that came beyond that was no one else is going to save you. So take responsibility and save yourself. And that's, if there wasn't a perfect time to share that, then it's right now, because it's exactly what you're saying, what you're saying. And something like this, 12 days, yes, Bali's incredible, but 12 days of immersing in the work. Oh my goodness, that is life-changing and transformational stuff. So if that lands with you and resonates with you, save yourself. Take a step out of the comfort zone and go and be selfish and do what you need to do to create the life that you deserve. Oh, I got goosebumps all over my whole entire body. Well, thank you so very much. I have absolutely enjoyed our time, and I'm a mad fan and will be following like a little fangirl. So I'll be looking out for the word CODSWALLOP. This will be launched on the 19th of July. So There will be lead-ins and we'll share all of the information. For those of you listening, thank you so much for spending the last hour with us. I hope that you have found not only one, but 100. I know that I've walked away with so many insights and facts and tips and deeper understandings and learnings as well. So you can follow me on Instagram, on Facebook, and on LinkedIn, She Can Humanise Business, or kianimills.com. Have an incredible afternoon. Go and create magic. And thank you again, Kute. That was absolutely incredible.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for listening to today's episode. I would love to hear your feedback around what resonated and what key lessons and learnings that you took out of today's episode. You can find me on Instagram and on LinkedIn under the She Can Humanise Business podcast or Kianimills. I really hope that you were able to see, feel and experience a new way of humanising business.